Top 3 countries that have breached the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Conventions are a set of international treaties designed to protect the rights and well-being of civilians and combatants during armed conflicts. Violations of these conventions are considered serious breaches of international humanitarian law, with significant implications for the protection of individuals in times of war. In this video, we will explore 3 countries that have been involved in breaches of the Geneva Conventions. Israel. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been a source of consistent allegations concerning breaches of the Geneva Conventions. These allegations predominantly pertain to the treatment of Palestinian civilians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, focusing on issues like settlements, blockades, and restrictions on freedom of movement. Allegations of violations of the Geneva Conventions concerning the treatment of Palestinian civilians have been a recurring concern. These allegations include the use of disproportionate force by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, in response to protests. One of the most contentious issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the construction of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which are considered by many as a breach of the Geneva Conventions. The Fourth Geneva Convention specifically prohibits an occupying power from transferring its civilian population into the territory it occupies. The blockade of the Gaza Strip by Israel, in collaboration with Egypt, has been a subject of significant controversy. While Israel argues that the blockade is necessary for security reasons, critics contend that it amounts to collective punishment of the civilian population and violates international law, including the Geneva Conventions. In the West Bank, Palestinians often face restrictions on their freedom of movement due to checkpoints and roadblocks. These restrictions are intended to enhance Israeli security but have been criticized as violating the principle of proportionality under the Geneva Conventions, as they can result in undue hardship for civilians. Syria. The Syrian conflict, which erupted in 2011, has resulted in one of the top 3 profound and protracted breaches of the Geneva Conventions. All parties involved in the conflict, including the Syrian government, opposition groups, and various international actors, have been accused of committing grave violations of humanitarian law. The international community has strongly condemned the alleged violations of the Geneva Conventions in Syria. The ongoing nature of the conflict, its complex dynamics, and the multitude of actors involved have made it difficult to resolve and ensure accountability for these violations. Ukraine. The conflict in Ukraine, which began in 2014, has presented a particularly complex and multifaceted situation. The allegations of breaches of the Geneva Conventions in Ukraine revolve around a myriad of issues, including the targeting of civilians, the use of landmines, and the treatment of prisoners of war. One of the primary allegations against various parties involved in the Ukraine conflict is the targeting of civilians. This includes shelling and artillery fire in populated areas, leading to loss of life and significant displacement of the civilian population. Landmines have been another area of concern regarding Geneva Conventions violations in Ukraine. The indiscriminate use of landmines not only threatens lives during a conflict but also poses a long-term danger to civilians after hostilities have ceased. The Geneva Conventions contain clear guidelines for the humane treatment of prisoners of war, and allegations of violations have arisen in the context of the Ukraine conflict. There have been claims of prisoners being subjected to mistreatment and inadequate living conditions. Final thoughts. The Geneva Conventions serve as a critical pillar of international humanitarian law, designed to protect the rights and well-being of individuals during times of conflict. Breaches of these conventions are deeply concerning, and they demand international attention and accountability. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like this video and check out our other top 3 Everything in the World videos.